Hi, juniors. How are you? Are you adjusting to all of these changes? This is our first week, first full week. I guess last week was our first week, but this is our first full week. Um, and I kind of want to give you a grace period. I hope you watched the video that I shared with you last week. I pack so much information in these videos. There's one thing I would ask you to do right away first on Monday is watch this video start to finish. If you don't, you're going to miss some key information. Um, all right, so I want to recap a few things. I'm using my notes here on the screen. One is that we meet one time a week in a live meeting. So I give you a week's worth of work with deadlines, but you have the option of meeting for a Teams live meeting. Period 3, that's 11:35, and period 4, it's 11:10, and I think that's on Mondays. Let me double check that. Yes, it's on Mondays. So I think there was a little bit of confusion. Some people thought we met every day. We just meet on Mondays at those times. So please show up, make a point of coming. I want to see your faces, and this week's going to be a little bit more structured, where I want you to contribute responses to the week's assignment, so related to The Great Gatsby. I'm going to try to talk kind of fast because I can drone on, and I only have 15 minutes. YouTube only allows 15 minutes. Okay, I just want to emphasize again how important communication is. I am kind of getting more emails than I would like. So come to the live meetings, use the Teams forum, and what else? Yeah, just let me know if there's any problems, questions that you have. I know it's really important that I'm patient with you these first couple weeks especially. All right, now to the not so fun stuff, which is deadlines. So much of how this class works now is deadline related. It always was, but now even more so. For example, last Thursday we had a memming quiz, and some of you just blew it off. So um, I'm going to give you a little grace for that period, but from here on out, and please hear me, you must meet the deadlines. If you don't meet the deadlines, then we're going to just keep on moving on. I'm not going to get into like a back and forth email with you where you're begging me to have an extension, giving me excuses. So my job is to write the directions clearly, be available to answer any questions. You have to meet the deadlines. So no back and forth emails begging me for extensions, or getting your parents involved to pressure me to extend those deadlines. So also on Sunday, this last Sunday night, was a huge deadline. Your Huck Finn paper was due, so it was a pretty big assignment. I'm hoping you got that in on time. So yeah, so just watching these videos, looking at the directions on the learning portal, that's it. And showing up to the live meetings. Please, please, please meet your deadlines. Okay. So what's happening this week? This is kind of it's a lot I'm throwing at you, but it's a week's worth of work. The first is something I'm titling Gatsby Chapter Guides. Okay, so if you go to the Great Gatsby, go to OneNote, go to the Great Gatsby tab, and you'll see something that looks like this, Gatsby Chapter Guides. It's a PDF. What I want you to do is move this over to your private library. If you haven't already, in your private library, create a tab that's titled The Great Gatsby. The Great Gatsby. And move this document over to that tab. do not change the title. It's titled Gatsby Chapter Guide. So the Great Gatsby tab, and don't change the title on this document. Okay, so I just want you to do this first page. It says The Great Gatsby Chapter 1. And so it's pretty self-explanatory. You're responding to questions related to settings, symbols, dreams, motifs. You choose a powerful quote, characters and relationships, Gatsby, and Nick. So I just want you to do chapter 1. This is repeated for the other chapters. Eventually you're going to turn this in and I'll grade the whole thing, but just do this first chapter. You can fill it in with your stylus or type it out. I don't mind, whichever, but you need to finish this by Sunday night. Okay, number 2, do chapter 1 questions. Same spot. It's one note underneath The Great Gatsby. Chapter, here it is. So it's a multi-page document here. The Great Gatsby group questions. For chapter 1, there are 7 questions. This is kind of solo. I want you to answer these questions as best as you can, writing out your answers on the document. Try to keep it together. So here's chapter 2, chapter 3. So you can move it over as an entire document, multi-page document. But do chapter 1 questions by Sunday night, writing out the questions in one note. Don't change the title, The Great Gatsby Group Questions. Okay, chapter 1 writing forum. What's that? Okay, so that is in Teams. If you go to Teams, this is my period 4 Teams, and I have these different channels here. This first one, question and answer class forum, this is just kind of like a do-all. If you have any question you want to ask me, you can post it here. But I created another channel. It's titled Chapter 1 Writing Forum. Here at the top, I wrote, write your own question here related to Chapter 1, The Great Gatsby. Come back later and respond to someone else's question. So what I'd like everyone to do is to write out your own detailed question. Please, try to put some thought into it. Don't just replicate a question that you've already seen. Maybe it's a question you don't know the answer to that you saw on a sheet. Someone can help you out. But you don't have to answer your own question. Write out a question, leave it up to other people to respond. Do that by Wednesday night. So you don't want to be posting questions Sunday night, but post your question by Wednesday night. That way you'll give everyone else a few days to respond to your question. So your initial response is due Wednesday night, but then come back later and respond to someone else's question. So that'll be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. You can respond to other people's questions. Okay, so now you have like this social thing going on where you're talking about the book. You're not just doing it by yourself. Okay, what else? Oh, I am going to give you a quiz on chapter 1, and I'm going to use something called Socrative, which I know many of you have used in other classes. It's going to be multiple choice. You can take it once. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to put a time limit on, but I'll just say you can only take it once. It's multiple choice. It'll probably be like 20 questions. Where do you go to take it? Go to the learning portal, and here at the top it says Socrative link period 3 or Socrative link period 4. So whichever period yours is, click on it. It'll ask you for a password. Just enter in your last name. Hoping there won't be any glitches. I'm using Socrative for the first time because I thought this is one way to administer tests online. So good luck. I hope it goes smoothly. That is due by Sunday night. So do that anytime during the week, but the deadline is Sunday night. Okay, number 5, read and annotate chapters 2 and 3 this week. Okay, so that's just your reading work. Do that by Sunday night. So next week we'll talk about chapter 2 and 3. Okay, and I did want to share some thoughts on chapter 1. And number 7 says live meeting. When the live meeting that we have on Monday, or today as you're looking at this, Um, Maybe if you have some thoughts about the chapter guide or responses to the chapter one questions, you can throw those out. So I'm not doing all the talking. Um, all right. So in OneNote, um, I have this document. It's under the Great Gatsby tab titled Chapter 1 Notes. Um, these are, sorry, my writing's not the clearest. Um, okay, so we meet our, just, I'm not covering everything, but these are just some thoughts that come to mind pertaining to Chapter 1. Um, so we meet this interesting character, Nick Carraway, who I like, you know, young man in his early 20s. He's from the Midwest, and so he kind of prides himself on being non-judgmental. He's kind of easy to be around, um, and he was involved in World War One. And we find out later that he went to Yale with Tom Buchanan, um, but he's telling the story about his move from the Midwest to Long Island, New York, and so he gets this. He was going to go with someone he worked with, but they kind of bailed on him last minute, and he ends up getting this little, I'll call it a hovel or shack next to this giant mansion in East Egg, Long Island. Is the name of the area, and we find out later the person living in this giant ridiculously nice mansion is this man named Gatsby, who we haven't met yet. It's kind of mysterious. So, but across the bay, on the other side, on West Egg, is his cousin Daisy, Daisy Buchanan. She's married to Tom Buchanan. Um, so let's see some points about Nick Carraway. He's from the Midwest, non-judgmental. He was involved in World War One. He moves out to New York because he wants to get involved in the bond business. His neighbor is Gatsby, and he's very much like affected by his past. So that's why he's telling this story. Like it had made this big impression on him. So a lot of like he's by himself, and so he has family that lives out there. So he makes a phone call and he makes arrangements to meet with Daisy, who he hasn't seen in quite a while. And so much of chapter one is kind of like this very interesting dinner date meeting that he has at their home. So I get the sense that they're very rich. Tom Buchanan, I would describe him as like really macho, um, arrogant, exactly the type of husband you would not want to be married to. Why? Because we find out in this chapter that he's actually cheating on his wife. There's this phone call that happens. He's also just flat out racist. Um, and he talks down to kind of everyone around him. All right. And Daisy, she kind of confides privately with Nick that she's essentially involved in like what is a unhappy marriage. There's this brief scene where she confides that she does have a daughter, but she doesn't really take care of it. The nanny looks after it. But we do get the sense right away that she is quite the looker, very beautiful. Um, and there's someone else in the room, and her name is Jordan Baker, a friend of Daisy's, and she is attractive as well, and she's kind of making eyes at Nick, and Nick is definitely interested in her. He's checking her out. There's this element of flirtation going on. She's very much sexually charged. Um, Nick is attracted to her. That's clear. All right. I mentioned that he is having this affair, and okay, this is a little passage I'll share. This is in my book 21. Daisy's talking to Nick. She says, I